All right, so we have a good amount of people here this month. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Thanks everyone for showing up. We're going to talk about how to use Dynamo and the sheet set manager with the sheet set manager package that I created last year. Um, it has been a little while since I've actually used this, so hopefully we won't I won't stumble too much on this. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen for this. We'll take a look at this process a little bit. There's a few things to know about Dynamo. If you don't already know that it's basically only in Civil 3D 2020.2 and 2021. So if you're in an older version of Civil 3D, you won't be able to use this. Uh, it is a single drawing scripting tool, so you won't be able to do anything like open and publish new sheets with this yet. Um, I've actually asked a couple of times about this, but I'm not getting any real concrete answers back on that. So for now, you're only going to be able to deal with the sheet set itself uh, or multiple sheet sets because they're technically outside of the drawing file that you're in. So first thing, you're going to need to make sure you have the latest one installed. And if you don't know how to find that, once you open Dynamo from your Manage tab, come up to the packages and you can just search for a package. Uh, I put in, or when I created it, I just gave it a prefix of my initials so you can just find everything that I've created. Uh, Sheet Set Manager. I've created one for 2020 and then I created one for 2021. So if you are on either one, you can use the appropriate one. When we get 2022, I'll have to publish a new one. And I'm probably going to have to publish that as a separate package if I want to maintain any updates to both of them. There's a limitation based on how I ended up doing this. So just click on the one you want. It'll run through, tell you it's installing. I actually already have it installed, but I'm just going to go through that. And then when you install it, it actually comes with several samples. They'll be located in your app data folder. And they'll look a little bit like this. They're just little samples showing you how this is supposed to work. Uh, let's expand out. Once you have it open installed, you can come over to the add-ons over to the left and you'll be able to see everything that's opened up in the API through Dynamo. So the way the API is for sheet set managers is you need a sheet set manager object in order to basically do anything. And that'll be your first object that you're ever going to have to create is your sheet set manager object. So down here under the sheet set manager tab, you can just create that new node and that'll be your root node for pretty much everything whenever you're working through this. And like in this example, it'll show you, talk about that. You'll need this node. You'll pass that node into the databases, which is essentially the file itself. The way the API breaks it down is the file is called the database, and then inside of that, all the content is held inside of a sheet set. When you want to actually access the data, then you'll come over here and you'll use this sheet set node, and you'll just plug in all the information that it's going to need. I grabbed the wrong one by database. So you'll just click in. So in this case, this string of nodes is going to actually grab all the databases that are currently open in the sheet set manager and give you the sheet set files for it. But because I don't have anything open in my sheet set manager, it's going to return null. And then one of my biggest tips for this is always make sure you're running in manual, because every time you need to make a change, it's going to make a change to that sheet set file. And then all that data is going to get stored in the node. So when you, like for instance, you add 4 sheets to the node and then you go back to the sheet set and you remove those manually, it still thinks they're in there. And in order for it to repopulate it, you basically have to disconnect the sheet set node, reconnect it, and then run it. It's a little finicky, and it's really because of the way the original API works. Um, does anyone have any questions so far? No? Okay. My second tip for this is to try and work kind of like in a split screen where you can see your Dynamo and your sheet set, because if you're working in an existing sheet set, you can actually see it here and you'll want to be able to visually check everything that you're doing. If you're creating a new sheet set through Dynamo, when it creates it, it's not going to pre-populate in here, but you can then go back and open it up and take a look at it and start working on it. A lot of the time, as you're doing test stuff or working on your graphs, you'll probably end up having to also open up Windows Explorer and go to wherever you're saving it so that you can just delete the sheet set, because it'll start erroring out if you're trying to recreate the sheet set over and over. I find it's just a lot easier just to delete the original sheet set and then run through it, or add in a node that holds the sheet set so you don't have to keep creating it over and over. That's really preference on how you're going to do it. Um, let's see. A few of the other things you can do with this are to create nodes or subsets. Uh, so there's a sample here for that as well, where you'll see a lot of the same steps. Create your sheet set manager, create your database, get your sheet set from the database. And then generally that sheet set will feed in to whatever nodes you're going to work on. In this case, for create a new sheet set, you need to provide at the bare minimum a new name and a description. I don't think the description is actually necessary, um, but you for sure need your sheet set, because otherwise it doesn't know where to add that to. We also have editing, so you can do some additional stuff, create um, the sheet set template and where the sheets are going to be stored at. And then you can also move the sheets around. This one's a little more difficult if you don't understand how the listing works in Dynamo. Uh, okay. So let's kind of jump in, create a new script here and see if we can create basically just a sheet set. So again, first thing we need to do is grab our sheet set manager. We'll need basically a location that we want to put it. So let's say directory. And pick somewhere that we want to store it at. Let's just put it on my C drive. And give it a name. So we're going to call it PST, because it is the full file name. And then we want to combine that into right. So at this point, make sure you turn that to manual. We have our sheet set manager already. We need to create a database for it. So by file name, plug in our sheet set and our file name path. And I keep forgetting that panning is middle button. It's been a little while since I've done this. Then go back to our sheet set by database. And right here is basically the bare minimum you need to create a brand new sheet set. So if we were to run that, well, what's up with that? Warning, file name. Well, that is the correct file name. Well, now I'm wondering what happened there. Uh,
Are you able to create files on your C drive? Or is that an admin thing?
you know, that's probably a good point. Let's put it here then. No, it's still the same error. That's weird because I know it worked the last time I actually did this. Except it's trying to go to my OneDrive. That's not where it's supposed to go. Yeah, let's try there. Let me try that. No.
Is it looking for a Pythonic script on file path? You've got those double slashes. Is it specific to that?
No, so because this is a code block, it's got the double because it's converting it into a string. And the other one, it was just using a path and a string, combining them to create the correct thing. But it does look like in this case, it actually may have written it. Let's go look. Oh, yeah, that ain't gonna work. Where's that say? Come on, click. There we go. Oh no, that seems to be opening. Oh, not paying attention. So what this is doing is opening one that exists. But the way I wrote this is supposed to create a brand new one. Oh, okay. My memory is fading. I was doing it the wrong way altogether. No, we want to do create a database from the sheet set manager, our file name, and then provide the database. And then we have our file. So where did I just save that? All right, so now we have that sheet set file. Opening, going back to CAD, we can see the sheet set itself. So at this point, now that we have that, we can turn around and unplug this and do what I was trying to do. Because we don't want to keep recreating it. So we'll just unplug that for now. Plug that in there. And now we can just continue to modify that as we want. So when we want to create sheets, there's a lot of stuff to it. You can just import layouts. You have to go through and find all the information for the layouts you want, like your the file of it, or the file name, the layout name. Again, you'll need to provide the sheet set. So we would click this into here, add in a file name and the layout name, or we can create a new one. Make sure I've structured it right. Okay, so it should be under sheet. Yeah, let's just create sheet. Yeah, I definitely should have prepared more for this. All right. So create our sheet set, new string. We'll call it let's put it also on my G drive. Site plan.dwg. No, I think that's going to be wrong. Let's find out. Yeah. So the file needs to actually exist beforehand. And that should have been under here. New sheet or create sheet.
So Adam, you're actually using this to create your DWG files?
Yes, was for a little while.
Okay.
I actually have a good sample somewhere. Let me see if I can dig that up real quick.
Because is there a way that you can tell it which template to start the file from?
Yes. That's actually part of once you have your sheet set made. Let's see. You would set your sheet template. So your new sheet template.
Okay.
Plug in your sheet, the path to your template, and the layout in the template.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mhm. Let's jump to here. All right. So in this, it's a much bigger graph than probably necessary right now, but does essentially that. This one actually automated it based on the project folder name, because when I developed this, we did a project number dash project name folder structure, and I had it pick a path, go through. Uh, so in this case, this was our project number, our project name, and it would strip this out to a separate string, remove that altogether, take this out to another string, and then store those, and then it would create, or it would look for where the file was supposed to be. So it would step down to a DWG folder, feed that back to multiple locations. Like for example, over here, this is where I wanted the model views tab on my sheet set to be. So we would set that. We would set where the sheets were going to be stored. So they were a subfolder of that called sheets. And then we placed the DST in the same place. So as we were pulling information, we would build that out. So in this here, we were just pulling the project name from the folder so that we could do that because we wanted it to be named after the project. And then it would fill in information. I'm not sure if this will still run. Yeah. Because that drive loader doesn't exist on here. Let me see if we can do one here. Yeah, let's do that. All right. So it ran that time because I'm using an old folder structure that matches what it's looking for. Let's see if I can go to that. So for example, it created the DST. And when I open that back in, here we can see that it's in there. We can see that it's actually locked because the DBL block file is in there. It should have unlocked itself when it did that. But it seems like there's an issue somewhere in there where it's not unlocking. See if we can fix that. Yeah. Fairly easy fix because the sheet set manager itself, the dialog doesn't actually have a link back to that DBL. The DBL got made during the code behind that's in each of these nodes. And then I know Tom was asking earlier about creating stuff from a Excel file. This graph here actually used that same technique where I would give it an Excel file and it would build all the sheets in the sheet set based on a structure of that file or what was in that file. So if I go and look at, find us this Excel file and see if we can fix it. I may have deleted that since then. Oh. So the way I structured this Excel file was we wanted our sheet name, title, and I even wanted to be able to decide if I wanted to keep it so we could have like a master list and just say, no, we don't want to make this sheet. We would just call it or tag it as false and not make that. So as it stepped through, it would have created these sheets. And I'm honestly surprised it didn't already. Maybe it's because of this. Anyway, that was actually all I had on my list, and I didn't do an adequate job preparing for this. But does anyone have questions specifically that I could show that you're wondering about?
Hi, Adam. I'm still not able to just generate a sheet set, which you were walking through in kind of your first example there. And I don't know if it's like a system issue for me or what, but I get like an error on that sheet set manager. Sheet set manager, it says operation failed, retrieving com class factory, and a bunch of technical jargon.
Which version are you on?
Dynamo.
Are you on 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Okay. There, some other people have sent me that, and I thought I had fixed that. It may, because of the way this package manager is not allowing the 2020 stuff to go back in there, like because this little increment and this little from here to here, it wouldn't let me go back to the 2020 version.
Okay.
I could send me a screenshot of that error message, and I'll know for sure if it's the same issue that I had to increment here. And if it is, I can get a fix, but it's not going to be something you can get through the package manager right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send that to you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam, I've got, I guess, larger questions, not necessarily programmatic questions, more just kind of your workflow, your intent. So I come to you and I say, hey, I've got a brand new project. You've done nothing up to that point. You might have some XREF base files, that are kind of preliminary that you've skeletally put together. I assume you've got like an XREF that's probably a sheet border or something like that. I don't know what your workflow is. And then, your instinct is to start creating a sheet set. Can you just kind of mentally walk me through what that is? Do you use multiple templates? Are you using one template? What's your typical workflow?
So mine would be a single template. So for example, we have one for sheet and one for a cover sheet because they do vary a little. But it's the one template that has each sheet size in it. And so we would just plug that in, decide which one. Once we create our sheet set, it's assigned the template we want. When we do subsets, each subset is assigned. So like if we're doing a project that has plats and site development, they'll have their own template, but it'll be the same file, just a different layout name. And then we can just very quickly create all of our sheets to that because it's been assigned that template. We can do that all through here as well, where when we create that subset, we would assign the template.
Are you starting with a project specific template, or are you just starting with kind of a generic company template?
It's generic, but doing that means the only content you're going to have on your sheet is what's in the template. If you're doing something that's going to like be somewhere out, way out in space, you're going to want to make sure your template has xrefs already in it if you're going to use this process, because this is going to just basically create a whole bunch of blank sheets for you. So you can create a project specific template, already put all your xrefs in it, set up the first view. It's going to be like your main view for all your sheets, and use that as a template. It'll do the exact same thing. And then you would just plug and play the little string values for those paths, and then just hit your run button in this case.
And when you're setting this up, you showed that Excel file for kind of an ingestion of kind of a listed sheet set. Is that kind of what you recommend for us? Is there kind of multiple different ways?
There are different ways. This is just how I thought about doing it based on the way they did it at the company I did it at when I started this. If you're not doing like a prefix numbering system like this, you don't necessarily have to do that, because you can have it just automatically increment the numbers. So as you're going through the list, you increment each sheet as you go.
What are the big nodes? I mean, obviously all of us are salivating over a sheet renumber, a sheet rename,
Okay.
those type of things.
I do have sheet renumbering that we could look at. So relatively, that's a lot smaller. Because of the way the sheet set is structured, if it's in the root node, you can pick all the sheets that are in just the root node, or all the sheets in a subset. You can't do both. You would have to go through and compile those all into their own list if you're going to do that. But in this case, all I'm doing is deciding if it's in a subset and then only counting those, or if it's not, counting those. And it's a little weird the way Dynamo works is the if statement comes after you've done that. And then this part here, just because virtually all values in the sheet set are strings, you have to convert them to a number, add that 0 to the front, and then pass it back. But it's doing it all at once because it is that list of strings. And that's one of the harder things about this, is making sure that the list you get out of your sheet set is in the right order. Making sure that it's doing them in the correct order. That one was a little bit of a hiccup for me when I started doing this. I also have one that does a recount. I think that might have been in the sample. Let me check. Yeah, so the actual recounting total count isn't in here, but these samples get you pretty close to that, combined with the last one where you just iterate through and renumber your sheets. So once you just know your count, you can just use these same snippets to just edit the value. So all you really need is all this. You would just plug in your sheet set once you have it. If it's a sheet specific, you would also need the sheet that you want to plug it into. But I know I had one that did the recount. I've been working on a few that actually do a user interface. That one's a little more difficult because basically it's you have to write the code in I forget what's the language that we're using on this. Python. That's right.
Python.
Yeah, you have to write the code in Python, or you have to write it in something else and then paste it into a Python node.
So outside of you've been looking at all those sheet set nodes, and I know your routine is bigger than that, but is most of the functionality is under that sheet set node itself, or kind of the grouping. Shouldn't be calling it a node, but you know what I'm getting at.
You mean the add-on over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the basic nodes are in here. The only thing you don't see is like the user interface stuff that I've been working on. Don't think there were any real extra nodes that I put in here. I basically built it just to be a mirror of the API. The only things that aren't in here are really related to sheet views, creating them. Is that you would have to basically create the view in the drawing and then pass that in, and there's a lot of weird quirks about that. Most people wouldn't really need to programmatically create the view, so I haven't prioritized that until someone really asks for it.
Has anybody on the call used this heavily, Tom? Just kind of curious what other users' experiences have been. I know Charlie, you had mentioned that you had.
I haven't used this at all.
So as an example for a UI, right here is a dialog box in order to pick the subset. I built this in Visual Studio to get the code and just kind of pasted it in here. But there's a lot of this code right here that you need to work out in order to get it to work to begin with. It's not very user-friendly at the moment. But I can give someone these sample nodes if they're really interested in building their own UI. It would give a good idea on how it needs to look, because you have to define all of the window parameters and everything, present it, and then spit back out to the out node the results of the dialog box.
So as a workflow, Adam, are you the one running this and then pushing it onto the other CAD techs that you work with, or are you kind of letting them run it for their own projects? How are you doing that?
I'm giving it to everybody to use. So if you have 2021 installed, you have Dynamo. I just put the Dynamo scripts in a centralized location so that they can access it through the Dynamo player, because they don't need to actually get in here and modify anything if you set the script up for some inputs. So when they open up the player, they can pick the locations or whatever they want to use. The interface I've added in there is to kind of get away from using the Dynamo player interface, because you have to put in all the values there, and it's either strings or pick boxes like file name. In this case, I wanted to just populate it based on what was in the sheet set. So in this case, it's actually the dialog box is giving them a pull down that lists all of the subsets or all the sheet sets. Well, this one lists all the sheet sets that are open. This one lists all the subsets in the sheet set that was selected in this one.
Okay. Yeah, currently we're running 2020, but we're on a biannual, or every 2 years we upgrade. So we're looking at 2022. We'll probably skip 2021.
Yeah, and 2022 is probably right around the corner, so probably good time to wait. Any other questions? I know this was kind of a short one.
Yeah, I have one more question. So I've been using the add-on, maybe some of you have used it from JTB World, which kind of extends the functionality of the sheet set manager. But one thing that's included in that I haven't been able to get to work well is actually renaming drawing files and layouts. I don't know if this includes any interoperability with like the file system to rename drawings based on like sheet set numbering or what have you.
I haven't thought through that, but I think you probably could to an extent. You couldn't edit the file name through this add-on. No,
Does Dynamo expose the OS object, the Python OS object?
it does not. I think Tom and I were actually talking about something similar to that last month, and I was looking at adding a package that does basically all the file IO stuff, but I can't get to it through the zero touch abilities right now. I think they've limited what we can do with Dynamo when it comes to the OS.
Can you do like a pip install on top of the Iron Python, footprint of Dynamo? And just
I don't know. I haven't tried. I know that the core sandbox probably has more than this does, and I've only really been working in this environment.
Justin, have you tried any of that? Do you know if you can? Has anybody asked? I know you've got thousands and thousands of dudes. So.
Oh, that I'm not sure of. I've been working a lot with some GIS data and racking my head with object data tables lately. So, and
I see.
Yeah, that's kind of where my focus has been.
I mean, there's such a myriad of libraries that are available that if you could just find the Dynamo footprint, you could just start jamming all kinds of crap in there, right? You could do a GDAL, injection, or an OS injection, which would solve Charlie's problem, or pick your poison, right? But right. I don't know how hogtied Autodesk is locked down the Dynamo engine to be able to do that or not.
Right, but you could also, if there's a DLL with public functions in it, you could just import it. So you would use that import library and just pick something. I've used it to some success on a few things when I was playing around early on with building this. So you could try that. Like just import the system IO stuff and see if that'll work. Didn't think about it until just now, so I might actually try that.
Yeah, I've been scratching out an idea, but I can't get the library in unless I can get to the, and then it's just like everybody else. I mean, Adam's done a great job because he's given everybody a library you can go download and just install in a Dynamo. You don't have to get under the hood, monkey around, and pull a bunch of wires out. It's just a package that goes, which is the beauty of it. What I'm kind of thinking is I'm going to have to get under the hood, monkey around, and try to inject a library that I'll have, but Jeremy won't, and Jennifer won't, and, because I just modified the out of the box Dynamo engine. In Dynamo world, I'm sorry, in Python world, they call those environments, right? So I'd be jacking with the virtual environment that Dynamo, I guess, runs on top of, but nobody else would have access to that virtual environment.
Yeah, you would have to give some instructions on how they could get to that if you were to give something out.
I think this is great. I wish I could get in there and get super dirty with it and try all kinds of things. Generate a 1,000-page plan set to see if it could, and kind of use different templates to do it. I'm not the one that does 1,000-page plan set anymore. I think Jeremy does though. So. Where you have to put screws through them because they're so thick when you're done. You have to drill holes through them.
Yeah.
Picking on you, Jeremy, because I hadn't seen you in a while. So.
It's been a while, man. Always good to see your smiling face, brother.
So, Adam, is there there's a Civil 3D API for sheet sets, and you kind of went in and back exposed that? Can you give kind of a 2-minute dissertation on what you did to get that exposed and build those nodes?
Yeah, so where did my Dynamo go? Come on. So basically, I went in there and took every API object that they had, created a wrapper for it because it's a COM interface, ancient technology.
Is it Win32com?
Yeah.
Okay.
Created a wrapper for it so that it had some public functions and methods, properties, and that's what created each one of those nodes. That node is the wrapper for that object in the API. I also added some under the hood stuff because if you're operating through the API, you're responsible for locking and unlocking the database before and after every edit you make. And I didn't want a user to have to deal with that through Dynamo because that probably would introduce all kinds of headache to have to make sure it's locking and unlocking correctly in the right order. So I built that into each node. So any node that edits the sheet set in any way will lock the sheet set, do the edit, and then unlock it for you.
And you could theoretically do that with any Win32com API, right?
Oh, yeah.
Same type of game.
Yeah. The only issue, my biggest issue with this API particularly, and I just made Autodesk aware of it this week, is that every release they increment the DLL file. All they do is rename it to, like, 2021 is ACSM components 24.dll.
Mm-hmm.
But when I build this, it targets that specifically, so it won't work if you're in an earlier or later version.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I have to have a code base that targets every version and compile it and build it for each version.
That's like, well, that's why Red Transit issues something new every time a new civil release comes out. It's the same problem, right?
That and JTB World and the other sheet set one. Yeah.
Yeah. Civil 3D's API's got the same problem, if I recall.
Yeah. And it means it's going to mean that every release of Civil 3D, at least until I can get them to address that, there will have to be a different package for that version for the sheet set manager. And ultimately, I think that's going to end up breaking it for anyone to reuse it from one version to another, because these nodes are only in one package. I don't know how that's going to work until I install it on a second on 2022 and find out. That probably won't be till this summer.
I think this is great, Adam. I'm ashamed to tell you I haven't downloaded, installed it, and played with it. I didn't want to until, I mean, I don't want to get under the hood until somebody shows me, you know, what's happening and how it works.
Well, I don't think many people have. Well, let's see.
It might be the second most popular Civil 3D download, though.
I have it downloaded, but I'm using 2020, and so I'm having those issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I think it was. Already forgot her name. Someone on 2020 was like, "I love to use this, but yeah, Stacy Morgan. She was like, I need this on 2020, so I built it for both, and then." Because I thought, oh, ingeniously, let's increment it, and I'm done. And it worked until someone was like, oh, wait, this one thing is broke. Okay, let me fix that. And it fixed it for everything except for the 2020 folks.
Adam, have you talked to Paola or Paolo?
I've reached out to him once, but it was really in regards to the Civil 3D objects and inheritance, but he's never bothered to respond. He probably missed my email. I don't know.
Well, he's busy as hell. I know that, but I'm wondering if they would have any desire to inherit this and maintain it. You're not selling it. I don't know if that's your intent.
No, my intent was just to give it to people, give it out. That's why it's up there. I have been looking at some way to license out other Dynamo packages. It can be done. It's a little bit of an overhead and headache that most people that already program Dynamo probably won't want to deal with.
I'm just wondering if they have any. I mean, it's what you've done is not Civil specific, right? It's sheet sets for specific. It doesn't have to be Civil. It's just AutoCAD in general.
Yep. It's just because they've only put Dynamo in Civil, then it's basically locking you into Civil. But if they make Dynamo available at the AutoCAD level, anyone could use this.
Right. Anybody have any other questions about like workflow? And I mean, I don't want to hijack. I'm asking two technical programming questions, not workflow questions. I mean, I think the idea is try to automate a complete, you know, I don't want to call it a push button setup for a project, but I would assume that's kind of the intent, right? That
it is in my workflows. Yeah, I want to just click a button, pick a few pull downs maybe, and be done, and have my 30 to 50 page sheet set done. So all I have to do is the content.
Because if you keep like a base file in in the same location, you could actually have it add XREFs too, couldn't you?
Yep. Yeah, if you pre-plan everything, you could have it all done. Well, no. So that goes back to one of the key things about Dynamo is you can't manipulate more than the drawing you're in when you open Dynamo. So if maybe you're in the template file, you could maybe have it do that and then save the file and do stuff, but you're not going to be able to do anything to the files once you've created them in the sheet set.
That's kind of back to my question where if you put the XREFs in a template that's specific to the project and then let Dynamo go nuts and start creating sheets off of that project specific template,
yes,
it should be able to add all those XREFs into those sheets.
Yeah, that would be probably the best way to go if you've got a lot of sheets on your project that you want to make. Like we've had some where it's like tiled out an overall and like 20 tiles on the sheet or on the set. Make one of those, call it your template, make the rest.
So Adam, are you even using this for plan and profile sheets as well? Or are you using the view frames like from just creating view frames tool?
I'd use this too. Mostly because you can just create the sheet ahead of time. You can always come back and resave over the sheet file, and the
Okay,
sheet set would already have it in there, and you don't have to do any of the sheet set side.
sure.
So let me ask that another way for clarification. So if I have an alignment and I use the sheet set tools inside of Civil 3D to cut plan and profile sheets, I'm assuming programmatically I can add those into, or Dynamo-ish, I can add them into that sheet set or do it manually or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of hybrid the answer.
Right. Yeah. If you've already used Dynamo to create your sheet set, you can use Civil 3D to just add to that sheet set. Or if you didn't add them to a sheet set, you can then add them later using Dynamo. So it's one or the other, a mixture of both. However, it feels right on your particular project.
With respect to the 2020 issues, so is that specifically just creating new sheet sets? Because that's something I'd be less concerned about. Or are there issues with editing existing ones as well?
I think it's just the creating.
Okay.
Yeah, it was basically one error. And when I fixed that, I think it was cleaned up for everybody.
Yeah, I'll have to play with it.
Yeah. Again, send me your thing, a screenshot of that one error over the node so I can verify that.
Okay. I sent it in the Zoom chat, so let me know if you didn't get it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that after because I can't seem to find the chat button.
Well, there's a lot of folks on the call that kind of aren't Austin-centric folks. I just want to say welcome to those.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking. I mean, I see even Craig Dizegger's hiding in the bottom. So hey, Craig, I'm picking on you, but I just want to say hello to those that I don't recognize.
Thanks, Andy. I'm new to the group. I just joined, so I'm up in Minnesota, a little ways away from you guys.
Yeah, but now it's easy. We're all in the same place. It's super easy now. So
Right. We do land development work in Texas, though, so I feel close at heart, right?
That's where those dollars are. Go grab them dollars.
No, this is great. Good job, Adam, and I'm glad that you could share this with us. We've been kind of evaluating how to use Dynamo, so I'm a little bit new to Dynamo, behind the game a little bit, and just exploring how to use it. And this is really inspired for other things I'm thinking of as well.
Yeah, I'd also suggest checking out the Civil 3D Toolkit if you haven't already found it.
I was just looking at that one.
Okay, that'll
change your world. It'll
Yeah.
change your freaking world. So get in there and blow it up and pull it apart. And the cool thing
I'm
is,
scared to pull it right now. I might spend all weekend on it, huh?
You probably will. They're actively updating it like as we speak. I mean, if you've got problems or there's a node that you want added, I've just sent emails to folks and they'll just add it in the next release. I mean, you have to, don't ask for something crazy, but like I wanted something that would create a site because they didn't have a node that would specifically create a site by Dynamo. And they just, okay, we'll add that in. We already have it. We just need to, just like what Adam did, you just need to wrap it and publish. So yeah, 1.122. That's what, a month old, a little more than a month.
Yeah, they were consistently doing like every week or every other week last year. Like when I was doing this one, I was also playing around with one that was Civil 3D stuff as well. And his didn't have things like points, and I was just playing with points. So mine for points is up there as well. It's also just a wrapper for everything. So everything in the API is exposed, whether it works or not. I didn't really test it. I just put it there because I was like, how hard could this be for them to do it? Let's see. Okay, everything that I've tested so far works, so it can't be that hard. Why are they taking so long?
Well, I mean, they're eating an elephant, Adam. So, you know.
Oh yeah, there's so much. Like this has a lot more than it did the last time I actively used it.
That'll expose, if you're a Civil 3D Power user, which I think most people on this call are, it'll expose Dynamo interface to pretty much, I would say 90 to 95% of the objects that are inside of Civil itself. You know, you wanted to create alignments and you want to do it programmatically and you want to lay out gravity networks, it'll do it. You know, you have to write the code, you know, but it does give you a lot of the object exposure. There isn't much that you can't do if you just parcels. Parcels are a little weak. They could be done better. The catchments aren't in there. You know, I mean, there's things that aren't there, but you know.
Yeah, and it's all driven by the feedback he gets and how much people want something. This originally started out as a mining toolkit or a tunneling toolkit. Back on 2020, they were doing a bunch of tunnel work wherever he was working. And so he built a lot of this and then just added on.
Probably Brazil, if I had to
Yeah.
guess, right?
Right.
São Paulo.
Yeah, all of his documentation is still from that first tunneling package, so it doesn't really have all the new stuff in it. Parcels are a little weak. I'm actually working on, was working on some stuff, and that's why I ended up emailing him, was because I wanted to inherit his object types so that his nodes worked with mine.
And I think one of the weaknesses, Tom and I were talking about this a month or two ago, is that I don't think you can instantiate styles. So like a lot of the style creation stuff is not there.
Right.
So it's more of a civil object kind of thing, like, you know, create a surface or paste two surfaces together, or, you know, lay alignment, cut alignment, you know, all the geometric stuff is there.
Yeah, styling's really not there yet. Let's see. I don't think I put them in this one yet either.
Yeah, but you're halfway there if it at least creates it for you. I mean, styling, it'll take a little bit of time, and that'd be awesome if we can figure it out, but at least if it creates the object for you, that's half the battle.
You'll have fever dreams in the middle of the night once you start dealing with Dynamo, and you'll wake up in a cold sweat and you're like, oh, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
You know?
I already do that.
It's gonna happen. It's like playing Tetris, right? After a while, you close your eyes and you see the parts falling down. You know, it's gonna be the same thing with Dynamo once you get under the hood and start messing with the objects. And it's not just Civil, right? I mean, Civil will connect to all the stuff that's above it. You know, connect to the CAD stuff and all it, and it'll connect to Adam's sheet set stuff, and everything just kind of starts, you know, turning into this giant cyclone of, you know, I can do this. I mean, just simple things like reading an Excel file is there, you know, or barfing out a CSV file, or, you know, whatever you're looking for is there. And I think that's where the Civil world's going to probably get a lot of bump from automation, especially for non-programmatic types that can lay out nodes and make connections and logic. And you probably need a little bit of a primer on Python, mainly just to understand how lists work and, you know, what's a string, and, you know, there's primers out there. If you don't
I use a little bit of Python already because of GIS, so I'm familiar with some of it, but I'm by no means an expert.
You don't need to be an expert to play with this. You need to understand kind of its nomenclature and how lists lists and dictionaries and strings and numbers and integers versus floats, and, you know, it's 7th grade programming if you're in junior high right now. I mean, it makes us all feel dumb because we're all older than that, but they teach 12-year-olds how to do this now.
So to backtrack to something you mentioned, a couple of things you mentioned, Andy, like all the stuff above or below Civil 3D, even in Paolo's toolkit, this GIS section is map 3D stuff.
Yeah.
I've never touched it.
I think the one with the photographs is sexy as hell, man, because you can take a directory that has EXIF data for photographs and just have it put Civil 3D points on every photograph that's in a directory. So like you can go out to site and just go take a bunch of pictures and then have it create Civil 3D points on your drawing, as long as your drawing's set up in the right coordinate system. And it will put Civil 3D points on every one of those photographs if you It's under GIS, I think, isn't it?
I didn't see it. No, there it is.
The
Photo.
photo, that's it. So that'll read GPS locations, and then you can tie that with a civil object to create points, and it will create civil 3D points on every photo object. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, I haven't published that one, but I just did it kind of over a fever dreamed weekend.
Yeah. And
it's
then,
not. Go ahead.
Oh, something else you mentioned was the generative design for civil. So this graph right here is actually taken from the generative design for Revit. And I rebuilt it. It's essentially a parking lot layout thing. So you can add parking spaces, change their angle and size. So if they're longer or narrower, or fatter. So this would be basically one of the nodes that drives your generative design for like just a bay of parking, and then you would have another one that calls this to generate multiple of them, so you can do a whole lot or parking area or whatever. I was going to play with doing more generative design. If you're going to play with that, you need the sandbox and Revit and the generative design tool, because right now it's not in Civil. But I just haven't had time to get back to this. I haven't. This is probably
Well,
the
and
first time I've
Justin
opened
just
it in
had an
months.
interesting one for parking. You just published out on LinkedIn, right?
He's ignoring it.
He's muted and talking.
I was talking and muted, and I fall victim of that. It's Friday. Come on, cut me some slack.
Right?
Yeah, I did have one, and I haven't circled back to finish it, but I can share my screen if you guys want.
It was just really cool how quickly, I mean, right now I'm using vehicle tracking, but seeing what you had there, that was just inspirational as well.
Oh, I'm a participant, so I can't share my screen. Or I can't share while Adam is sharing.
Oh, there you go. You can go ahead and share.
Okay, I should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I have a list routine, just PRKG, and what it, let me PRKG, and then it just makes my flow line layer current. So I'm just going to do a rectangle from 0,0 to like 360 by 360 in size. So this is like my flow line. And if I go to my player, parking lot. So I can put in the different stall widths, angles. I can shift the interior rows if I need to, X or Y. And then, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. I'll rotate the interior rows at 3 degrees. And I just hit play. And it'll lay out. Yeah, all of my stalls. I need to get it to draw this one here, but I actually want to tweak it. I want to create a working layer and then have it go in here and draw, instead of this stripe and this stripe, I want it to put the flow line in with a radius and then offset everything. So, I mean, I started it last month, and I need to circle back and finish it. We're all super busy, you know, so. But yeah, so it'll define my width of 24-foot drive lanes. It sets this, you know, based on the drive lane width plus the parking stall depth. So, you know, this one is every 60 feet. But yeah, so it's pretty quick for laying out sites. And if I ran it through Dynamo, then I could grip that flow line, polyline, and as I stretch it, it will update. So right now I have to delete it, rerun it. And so, yeah, I probably have 40 hours in that script. It was a nightmare.
And it's just a Dynamo script, no nodes that you created on your own behind the scene.
Nope, it is, there's some Python, but you can see just open it.
Yes, I think that's one of the biggest strengths of Dynamo is very little coding for a good chunk of what you can do with it.
Yeah. So just all my inputs, and then what I have it do is create surfaces. So I have it pull the line work from model space. I put a bounding box of the parking. The exterior parking is different from the interior. That way I can rotate it. And so you'll see perimeter parking and interior parking. And then find vector perpendicular to parking lot. And getting the geometry back in. So I mean, this little one, honestly, 40 hours probably. By the time it was said and done, it's still not 100%. So, yeah. But like I said, I'd like to have it offset that, you know, back of curb, edge of asphalt, and then at the end, if there's not enough room for another stall, have it put an island in or striping. Our offices in California use tree diamonds, you know, every 5 or 10 stalls. So I want to make sure that it, you know, they can choose if they're in what office they're in. It'll place tree diamonds every 5 or 10 stalls, and yeah.
Yeah, but even though that maybe took you 40 hours, I mean, think of how much time it's saving everybody else just with the click of the button.
I know for the last month, some of our civil design team have been using it, and I know it's been saving them on layouts. And so
Yeah.
I like to get it to work with, you know, curves, is it's reading a curve, but it places them along the tangent, or I'm sorry, the chord of it. But I'll get there. It's a great thing. If I don't have it 100% finished, they're going to keep me until I do finish it. So
Maybe submit an AU proposal for it.
Don't finish. That's job security. Kidding. That's great. No, I think there's a lot to do out there. And there's a lot of stuff being generated by a whole bunch of different folks. So I think what you're gonna see kind of a renaissance of civil kind of design centric Dynamo scripts in the next year or two. And especially because the nodes are being added, things are being adjusted. What's going to happen is you're not going to necessarily need those vendors that are creating those scripts as much. You know, some of those guys are creating things that just cannot be replicated by Dynamo at this point, maybe ever. But you know, a lot of little smaller mundane things. I saw one that Justin had in there about, you know, I don't know if I saw it right, but like creating water services or wastewater services.
yeah, so
I'm not picking on you, but I saw that, and you know, that's tedious trying to lay those out for large single-family subdivisions, and that's a task that could be relatively automated. I don't know if you're doing the networks or you're just drawing the lines or both.
So they're just lines, and what you saw on the screen was some GIS to get information in GIS. So I'll open that file back up. If you guys don't mind hanging around, I can show you.
I've got nowhere to be.
Well, and I think, like you guys said, it's you know, taking those mundane tasks, like when you were talking sheet numbering before, we actually have the SimPack. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but SyncPack tools that we purchase to renumber. I mean, renumbering sheets is just one of those things, but that's where I see Dynamo scripts replacing a lot of that stuff. Is just you write it exactly how you want it to be.
Jennifer, I think a lot of people buy SyncPack and only use the sheet renumber. Which is totally wasteful, but that's what I've seen. So
I use alignment to profile and projecting to profile quite a bit, but that's about it.
So yeah, you see that you're probably talking about the sanitary sewer laterals, Andy.
Yes, sir.
So we're starting to get more municipalities in Colorado that are requiring us at the close of a project to provide them with GIS object data table.
Yeah.
So for a project, it could take like 40 hours in Civil 3D to do that, or 60. So here I've got these laterals, these sanitary laterals, and you can see there's no object data table here, information. And so if we go in here, we can just add it real quick. And I've been working on this slowly. So like install date, we'll put today's date, material, just PVC. Diameter, let's go like 4.25, sewage is default. So all of this is in here, and then we'll call the subdivision name.
Mhm.
And then just hit run. And so then it'll add all of those object data table attributes to those laterals. So like if we click that sanitary lateral, now we'll see that it's got all of the install date, material.
Awesome.
And so I've been playing with it, getting it to pull the information from the layer and then filtering if there's blocks. So like, even though this is a water line, there's valves, T's, and hydrants in here. So I'm having it filter out the hydrant separately and then adding a counter, a number, so that it's FH1, 2, 3 going through. So they're all separate attributes, and doing that for all of them. Even our easements, lamp posts, everything have to be done that way. So,
Oh, that's great.
so just adding a counter to it for the block saves so much time. Because I mean, there's like, I don't know, 18 of these lamp posts. But right here, the facility ID has a counter to it. So that it populates that information. So that one was 5, this one is 4. So
Does the municipality come back and ask for other stuff? I mean, is there additional outside GIS stuff that you're processing? Like what lot does it go to, or what's the property address that service is on, or
so
is there other post-processing?
yeah, I mean, like I've got it printed out right here for the laterals.
Look at that shit.
And it's 36 pages, and we have to do this at the end before they'll accept it after the as-built. And so, like I said, it could take 40 to 60 hours depending on how much is on the site. So if they can go through and click everything in 4 to 6 minutes, I get to keep my job for another year. So that's just kind of how I do it.
Or until retirement.
Yeah, right.
We don't do that effort, but did you guys know, I don't know how many of you are GIS users on the call, but Arc Pro 2.6 can accept pipe network data now.
Oh,
So you can directly open your pipe network in Arc Pro, and it'll have all those attributes for you. So that's what I've been doing with main lines, just because we need to populate the data. So our GIS folks then take my pipe network information and kind of merge it in with the specific city stuff. But at least it pulls like the size, the invert, the top of casting,
What does it
structure
ingest?
type.
Is it an XML ingestion, or is it just straight up civil?
It's just straight up. Basically, you bring in the pipe network DWG into the Arc Pro. You just open it up and it automatically classifies all that data. And so then they take that GIS Arc profile and merge it in with the rest of our city data. But yeah, it's really cool. That came out at the Esri UC in last July, that capability. So I've been testing a little bit of functionality with that.
That's pretty cool.
I'm looking at that now, Adam.
And with that, and everyone leaving, that's the end of our meeting. So we'll see everyone next time.